And welcome back to the Hot Seats with your hosts, Marcus Sheridan and Ryan Hanley, otherwise known as Hanley because he certainly doesn't like the name his mama gave to him when he was a little boy. Tonight, we are talking about all types of subject matters. Specifically, we will be addressing this subject of, is blogging dead, amongst other things. Courtney, welcome. Welcome all you that are watching on the Blabosphere, you live viewers. Of course, this is recorded for the podcast, the Hot Seat Podcast, which is coming out soon. And so if you're listening via podcast right now, we welcome you to this episode. Mr. Hanley, a good evening to you, sir. We have 4 sections in every episode of the Hot Seat. We have Tap Your Brain, News for Nerds, DDYST, which stands for Dude, Did You See That? And, of course, we have the Hot Seat, where the questions are asked. And I would also like to mention Mr. Andy with LinkedIn Insights, who is the GIF master, and he just crushes it in the sidebar. And he alone is worth attending one of these episodes to watch it.
And just in case no one knows what a GIF is, he's talking about a GIF, the moving pictures that you see like on Twitter and stuff.
Yes, as we all know, it is pronounced GIF by the creator of the GIF. That being said, which I settled that debate, and you still want to hold on to it, just like the fact that you think Elvis is still alive. All right, Mr. Hanley, time to tap your brain, sir. What's on your mind tonight?
So I want to talk about something. You know, last episode we talked about Seth Godin and just kind of breaking down some of the things that he had said and turning that into a larger conversation. A really interesting phenomena that I've seen, and I'd love for anyone out there in the comments to let me know, like, if you agree or disagree with what I'm about to say. But why is it cool to hold Seth Godin up on a pedestal, which for all intents and purposes he deserves? Like, this is not a knock on Seth. Like, he's amazing. I love the guy. Love his work. And to be honest with you, I've emailed him on different things like 3 or 4 times, and dude has always responded, which is amazing. So, but why then is it not cool to do that with Gary Vee? Like, it's cool to say Gary Vee is cool, but like, I would put him, you know, even though he's younger, I would put him at the same level of thought leadership.
What you're saying is people are almost like embarrassed to say that Gary is the man, where they're not embarrassed to say that with
actually, and this came out. We were talking about this a little before we went live on the phone, and it was like I almost had to like apologize to you for being a Gary Vaynerchuk fanboy a little bit, you know what I mean? Which I 100% am. I dig it. He's from the Northeast. His attitude, the fact that he curses, his kind of raw, like, that's just our way. That's the way we are up here. I love it. I completely dialed into it. Huge fanboy. Read all the books.
Completely dialed into the cussing part.
Yeah, right. But you know, every time I say, like, I give a Gary Vee quote or kind of reference something that he talks about, I always have to say, well, you know, there's like some sort of lead in, where with Seth, it's just like, oh, Seth Godin said this, so obviously it's true, and obviously you all agree. It's like it's an odd dynamic.
Maybe it's because of that. All right, I think there's this thing where people, because Gary is so over the top with the way that he communicates, with his style, with his passion, that there's this whole group of people that just want to automatically maybe discount him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just want to discount it as not being who he is. It's like, that's just not who he is. And I think that's totally who he is. I know how you are. I know the conversations you and I have. I mean, you know, you've certainly got a little bit of Gary going on with you. But you make a good point, because we sometimes have to apologize for being Gary apologists, but we don't have to apologize for being a Seth apologist. It is an interesting paradox in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I don't really have a point. I found it really interesting that when you share something, it's like Seth Godin, truth. Like, it literally just, if you hit tweet, it like the universe, he doesn't even put it in. The universe adds hashtag truth. Like, just the universe comes in and just like, hashtag truth. Where with Gary Vee, it's kind of like, sorry, I'm sharing this, but it is pretty cool. Like, that's, you know, it's just a weird thing.
Chris Handy makes a good point in the sidebar. He says, no one should be above criticism, nor should anyone be too young to be worthy of praise for being a master of their craft. Good point, Mr. Handy, as always. As always. It is an interesting dynamic. You know what's on my brain tonight?
What's on your brain?
Weird TV people. Now, what do I mean by this? Okay. So apparently there is this show called The Walking Dead. Now, there's two groups of people that would, when they hear me say, apparently there's this show called The Walking Dead. There's those that are saying, yeah, idiot, of course there's a show called Walking Dead, and they start thinking about the show. And then there's another group of people that say, oh yeah, I think I've heard of that show. But here's what's funny to me. Have you noticed on social media, when people are talking about TV shows, they almost act like everybody in the world is watching that show? I have no idea what The Walking Dead is about. I don't even understand what all this zombie talk is about. I literally have no idea. I've never seen a show with zombies. None of that stuff. So here's my point, Henry. Right. What's with you Walking Dead heads, or with all these other folks that act like the rest of the world knows exactly what they're talking about? It seems like this curse of knowledge thing going on.
So you brought up two topics here, and I'm going to separate them, and I'm going to provide answers. I'm going to provide answers to both. So the first question is, the first thing you said was, what's up with all you zombie heads?
Yes.
Zombies are the coolest form of creature horror, and I'm going to tell you why. Because in a good zombie movie, you're not scared of the zombies. You're scared of the other people in the zombie land. That is the secret to a good zombie movie. That's how you tell a good zombie movie from a bad zombie movie, is that the zombies
just the fact that you're talking about good versus bad zombies makes you weird. What is the obsession? Now, that's a whole other thing in and of itself. I don't understand it. But I'm telling you, people all the time act like if you're watching the show, like people get caught up and they watch the whole series, right? And it becomes their whole world for 24 hours. And then they start talking about it. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
So there's a second issue here. You didn't let me. So the second issue is, why do people who get into a show assume that everybody watches the same show as them? And that is because they're crazy.
Moving on, news for nerds, my friend. News for nerds. This is when we talk about anything that's techie, newsy, or whatever-y in the digital world or what have you that we want to talk about. I think I'll start with this one, Mr. Hanley. I want to talk to you. Have you heard of this tool called Slack?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's a great article in the Los Angeles Times, and the title of it is "Ridiculous and Amazing Slack Messaging App Keeps Human Users in Mind." And so I just want to give you the quick theme. This is by Tracy Lean, I believe it is, a reporter there. This is a really, really good article in terms of if you are trying to just learn about good business practices. There's so much going on here. And I don't know about you, but email is just killing me. I mean, it's absolutely killing me. And it kills the workplace, especially workplace communication. It can be brutal. But here's why Slack, which is like this little digital David in the land of Goliath, and it's doing a lot of incredible things. But there's a couple of things about it that I just think is so very interesting. And let me just give you a couple examples. Keeping the human users in mind, Slack has welcome messages such as "What a day! What cannot be accomplished on such a splendid day?" And "Sometimes you eat the bear, and sometimes the bear, well, he eats you." And then on Slack's release notes, in other words, when they have a technical update, they litter them with puns and jokes and personalities. And companies such as Tumblr, Medium, Annotate have followed suit, writing their release notes as short stories, poems, and even sonnets. Slack's error message is so amusing that users often take a screenshot and share it. And so my point is, Hanley, this is a company that has a soul. They're not doing everything boring. They're actually doing it in a way that is fun, that is fancy. They have a great vibe about the company, and they're blowing up because of it. And usually, here's what's interesting: it's ground up with the growth of Slack. In other words, what happens is you have some people that are in a department, they start using it and they push it up, which is different. And that's how you know it's going to be special, is because lots of tools management has to push down. Slack is being pushed up. That's some pretty sweet action. Great case study for a successful startup company doing things right.
I don't really have anything to add to that.
Tell me what's your news for nerds, you little nerd.
Actually, I had a post from Mark Schaefer's blog that had some cool things that actually Tom Webster wrote. But I'm going to bypass the stats and just give you two quotes that this is why this show works, because there is a weird connection going on, like between here and here, or depending on where you're looking, here and over here, because here are the two quotes at the bottom of this post, which I had no intention of reading until you just said what you said. He quotes at the end of this Peter Drucker, author, business guy, a lot of great books, wrote this more than 50 years ago. A good deal of what is called marketing today is at best organized, systematic selling. Marketing is the distinguishing, unique function of a business. Mike, drop.
So what did you just mean by that?
So what I meant was that much of what people in the examples that you just said, right, like Medium and all these other companies are trying to follow suit. Much of what we do on a day-to-day basis, marketing, is all funnel-driven bullshit, moving people from the next email to the next landing page and segmenting lists and blah, blah, blah. And what really matters is the second part of his quote, which is essentially the only thing that actually distinguishes one company from the others is the marketing, because ultimately Slack is a good product. I'm sure it has some nice features, but I'm sure there are also a dozen or 24 other competitors that, when lined up feature per feature, essentially are the same thing and a slight change in workflow or process.
But I would argue Slack has a soul. Right? You feel like you can know them. And there are real humans inside of that machine that are pushing it.
But this is what Peter Drucker is saying, is that the marketing, the soul that they put into their marketing, the fact that their releases come out, because that release is marketing, right? The fact that they make it into a short story with puns and jokes and inside things and whatever, that is marketing. But it's marketing that distinguishes them from their competition, to the point where now major companies are looking at their emails going, we need to write emails like them. Yeah. And all that does is prop up their emails even more.
Yeah.
Which essentially what I'm saying is marketers are the most important person in every organization. Boom.
So marketers, I think sound messaging is a culture. I don't really think it's a departmental thing. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just the way that we talk. It's just the way that we speak. It's just when we're talking about our stuff, when we're in a face-to-face, when we have just a way about us that is different. Anyway, interesting what's happening with Slack. I have put the link up there for anyone that wants to, anybody wants to see it in the sidebar. It's right there.
I'll put the link up to Mark Schaefer's blog post here too.
All right, sir. So you have no news for nerds. I'm going to jump to...
No, that was my news for nerds. I just skipped what I was going to do.
I got you.
I don't like the pretenses of me coming unprepared. I think that you're falsely representing my commitment to the show with that statement.
So let's test your commitment right now, sir. In this section, DDYST, it's due. Did you see that? Yeah. This is anything that catches our attention that is, that is interesting. So what's your DDYST for this week?
Yeah, I know what yours is, so I'm going to go first because mine is less cool. So mine is, dude, did you see that ESPN had to take down all their videos from YouTube because they will not sign the new YouTube Red contract? You cannot watch ESPN videos on YouTube anymore.
Interesting.
11 of their 13 channels had to take down all the videos because of YouTube Red. So if you're not familiar with YouTube Red,
with it. Enlighten.
So YouTube users can now subscribe $10 a month, or there's like two options. Doesn't matter. They can subscribe monthly fee, and it removes all the advertising from YouTube. Cool feature. Every content publisher has to sign a new statement, like terms and conditions. And in there's this piece about YouTube Red, where it's a subscription service. And YouTube, because of their licensing contracts that they have with athletes and all the different organizations that are involved in their video production, cannot have their videos on a site based on a subscription-based revenue model. So they can't sign the YouTube Red contract. And here's the crux of it. So YouTube says, oh, you won't sign our new contract? We're cutting all your content. So if you won't sign that new thing, all your videos go to private. And there's an article here. I'm going to post it from TechCrunch. And I've only read a couple articles on this. So if anyone has the whole story, info was taken off Blab too. YouTube is not the only place about them that was removed. Yeah. But, so basically it's any place that has, for ESPN's purposes, any place that has a subscription-based revenue model, they can't have their videos on there. But, specifically because of this new YouTube Red thing, ESPN, done.
Well, ESPN's starting to drive me crazy anyway, because now if you want to watch a 5-second highlight, you still have to watch a 15 to 30-second commercial. Look, I understand having commercials, but I know that they are making it harder and harder for me to want to enjoy the website. And I should have said this about Slack. One of the points of the article about Slack was it's intuitive and it's easy. And I think the essence of a great buying experience today, whether we're going to a retail store, whether we're getting gas somewhere, whether we're going to buy a phone somewhere, whether we're going online, is we can find what we are looking for, and we can find it fast. That is my obsession with my two very different businesses. That is the question that I'm thinking about the most is, can the consumer right now, can they come to the site and can they find what they're looking for? Can they find it quickly? If they cannot, we have failed them. And that's what Slack is doing well. ESPN seems to have forgotten that. Yeah. And the fact that they're making me watch 30-second commercials for a 6-second highlight is ridiculous.
Dude, I think ESPN across the board has made some really questionable calls. I mean, some of their talent decisions, I know Cowherd said the thing about Dominicans or whatever, but he could have been penalized in other ways.
It was amazing. They think they're bigger than the problem is they think the brand is bigger than the talent. The umbrella that is ESPN is bigger than their smaller brands, and they can just overcome anything. I don't buy that.
No,
because
I stopped listening to ESPN Radio. I stopped listening to ESPN Radio. Doug Gottlieb is terrible, and I hope Doug Gottlieb. He's terrible. He's not funny. He thinks he's funny. Colin Cowherd did not think he was funny. He just had an opinion and he voiced it. Doug Gottlieb is terrible, terrible, and it's ruining ESPN Radio. I mean, I won't listen to it anymore. I listen to Dan Patrick now, same time slot, and Dan Patrick is great. But there's another guy they let go.
But I think there's a moral to the story, though. Which is our personal relationship goes deeper than the umbrella brand, right? So every company has individual brands. They actually matter. That's why I know that if I stopped recording my podcast, which is called the Hubcast, where George Thomas is one of the co-hosts, my co-host, it wouldn't be the same. People love George. So if I tried to do it by myself, it wouldn't have the same impact. Yeah. We would lose listeners. That's a fact. And you've got to consider that when you're trying to grow a brand, when you're trying to do anything with business that involves individual brands within that company.
Dude, I talk about this all the time during my presentations to insurance agencies. So a huge issue is insurance producer compensation, because in the insurance industry, you have, for those that don't know, you have a principal who essentially owns all the relationships, all the contracts with the insurance carriers. And then you have his producers, which essentially is sales staff. They don't own any of the business they write, and they get commissions. And what I say all the time to principals, because every insurance principal thinks that their agency's brand is bigger than the producers they have underneath them. So they treat them terribly. They're constantly messing with their commissions and splitting commissions on any business that even sniffs as if the person knew the agency before the producer, and blah, blah, blah. The point is, people always buy the people. Always. They always buy the people.
That's right.
They always buy the people. And think about a simple example is Zappos. You're buying the kid who's looking down at the shoes and going, man, these are super comfortable. I love the way blah, 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 blah. And they're looking at the review, and you're buying that, and you're buying the idea that Tony Hsieh has. You're buying the people and the culture of that business, which is essentially the soul of that business. It is never the overall brand. The overall brand is nice for drawing in attention, but the thing that gets them to hit the buy button is always the people and the culture.
True that, homie. True that. Hey, remember, everybody, if you have any questions or you would like to jump in, just let us know, and you can jump in to the hot seat and discuss your thoughts and feelings on anything that we are talking about here. That's if you have something urgent that you want to say. we still have a couple. We still have one more main section here. We're going to talk about the rise, the fall, the rise, the fall, and the rise and the fall of blogging tonight, and the death times 10, which it's died at least 10 times apparently from most people's sites. Really quick, my DDYST this evening is Adele. Girl has pipes, and man, I'm telling you what. 70 plus million views in 3 days. She broke Taylor Swift's records. So my question for you is this. Taylor Swift has a bigger brand, arguably, than Adele. But Adele broke the record. Now, do you think she broke the record of views in 3 days or whatever it was? Do you think she broke it because of the scarcity model? Like, in other words, she's been out of the game, and so she came back in it, and boom. So
she had a better email autoresponder set up than Taylor Swift.
I don't know. You know what? I'm telling you what, though. I'm not into, like, singing very much. That woman opens her mouth, man. It, like, moves. It moves the whole room. It is unbelievable.
By far, and I would love anyone else who's a fan of the Bonds, by far, if not the best, top 3 Bond intro songs was by Adele. What was it, 2 Bonds ago? Or was it It was 2 Bonds
ago.
2 Bonds ago, I think it was.
It was solid. Adele is solid, and she's doing all right. Skyfall,
yeah.
Well played,
Steve Dotto on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a couple of people said scarcity. Evan Dewey said scarcity is key, and she certainly has had that in the last, I guess it's been about a year and a half since she released anything at all or more. But amazing new song. Hello. Whoa. Dude, did you see that? Anyway, so let's get to the hot seat. The hot seat tonight. We're going to discuss what's
before we get there. 30,000. So 79 million people watched this video. 30,000 people had the balls to click down thumb. It's a song. I mean, even if you don't like Adele, it's a well done song. I mean, even if you're not into the style, it's a well done song. 30,000 people had the balls to hit down thumb. Haters gonna hate you.
30,000 people out of 70 million are just really grumpy. I mean, there's really grumpy people. You know what it was? People were joking about that song. Like, people that said, I don't even have an ex, and I, like, want to cry for this ex that doesn't exist when I listen to that song.
How about you don't have an ex? That is crazy. Yeah. Like, never in your life.
Well, that's what people are saying.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
I mean, Hanley,
that's accomplishment.
If they had your dating life in high school, I could see how it would be viable. I could see it. All right, sir, let's talk. Let's talk about the hot seat. The hot seat question of the night is blogging dead, and this is stemming. Well, who do we have here?
Hey, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
All right, I'm not dressed for success tonight, but I got to get going here pretty soon doing my wrap-up for tomorrow, my podcast. But I did want to jump in on that whole ESPN thing.
Okay, jump right in.
Yes.
Tell us what's on your mind.
Well, so I was in another blab earlier last week, and, I mean, some big folk were in that. I mean, big folk were in it. And a guy that used to be with ESPN came on and started talking about it. And when this news popped up on TechCrunch, I said, oh, man, I got to put that in my roundup for tomorrow, right? And so I went back and looked for that, other blab I was in to see what they said, to pay a little more attention to it. And that stuff had been wiped.
Yeah.
I mean, the part that I was in it, the whole front of it where I was in it and a couple of other people were in, and then this ESPN guy.
So what you're saying,
it's like she didn't even record it, man. I know she was recording because I was in there and I was watching it and it was recorded. And not only that, all the comments were wiped too.
So it's conspiracy. ESPN is the new Death Star.
No, I don't know, man. I mean, this guy was an insider, and I don't know, if he was giving away some information he shouldn't have, or what the deal is. And they asked him, got with Blab, because you got that kind of money and that kind of pull, I guess you can get Blab to do something for you. But
so they crumbled the Blabosphere because of the power of the almighty ESPN.
I don't know. I'm just saying info ain't there anymore. That's all I'm saying.
Someone is always
Data
recording.
is missing. That's
It's
all
gone.
I've
It
got to
doesn't
say.
happen. It never
Wow.
actually happened.
This is amazing. The ESPN conspiracy of online video. I love
Who
it
knows,
because
man?
it actually makes sense, because if someone were to upload that to YouTube, not only would they be technically breaking the rules, but if he's dropping some inside knowledge,
And I'm betting she does, because she's big. She's got something that goes out to 14 million viewers, or something. So
Would that be considered insider blabbing?
I think so, man. I think so.
some lawyer is working on some sort of legal suit called insider blabbing right
man.
now.
I know, but all I say is data's missing. So, I just wanted to jump in on that. So I'm interested to hear what y'all got to say about it.
Thank you for jumping in today.
Yeah, man. I'm interested to
Thanks,
hang around
man.
and hear what y'all got to say about his blogging dev. I want to hear about that.
Yeah.
All right.
Good
Y'all
seeing
have a
you.
good
All right,
rest
be
of the night.
good. Good seeing you.
All right, so Hanley, so this is what's interesting. The other day, and I don't know, Mitch has been on this podcast now a couple weeks in a row, but Mitch Joel, he posts an article on his 12-year-old blog, which is talking about his blogging dead, right? His blogging dead, and it really was a lead-in to what is Facebook Notes. Facebook Notes, that thing that you and I used like 3 times 6 years ago, and we haven't used it since then. And so I did before we get into this. I was on Google, and so do yourself a favor. And I love Mitch, by the way. So it's just because he's been blogging longer than anybody. I want you to, if you got an open window right now, Google Mitch Joel blogging dead. Okay, just do me a favor. Google Mitch Joel blogging dead. Okay, so what comes up is blogging is dead. Here we go again. January 2012. Next one, February 2011. Blogging is dead again. Next one, 2013. This blog is dead. Next one is 2008. Blogging dead. Next one, 2008. Blogging is not dead. And next one, 2008 again. Blogs are not dead. And then, of course, we can't forget January 2013. Marketing is dead again.
Apparently,
end of blogs. This has been a topic that just keeps on giving. It certainly keeps on giving for Mitch. It never grows old. What say you, Hanley?
Yeah, I agree. It's done. It's toast. We all should give up.
Steve Dotto says, "No horse so dead it can't be flogged again."
Yeah. And it's Brent Kelly actually had a great comment before. ESPN needs more Yankees Red Sox games, right? Like, just keep rolling it. If it works, just keep rolling it out. Let's hype up another Yankees Red Sox, even though 3/4 of the players play for the same different teams now. It's unbelievable. So, all right, so let's get into this, because I think the impetus for this wasn't just our Google search history, but again, this is Ryan Hanley and Marcus Sheridan, the Twist Image podcast review podcast.
apparently the last 2 weeks it has been. Yes.
Yeah. So this week, Mitch had on Mark Schaefer, who we also already referenced in this show. We need to get some new people that we follow in our RSS feeds. So they're having a conversation about Mitch recently did a test on Facebook Notes. So Facebook Notes is essentially Facebook's response to LinkedIn Publisher, Medium, these kind of third-party blogging in quotes platforms. And Facebook Notes actually launched about 5 years-ish ago. And if you go back, you maybe at the time when it first was launched, it was more just like little notes. It literally was notes.
Yeah, no graphics, no nothing.
Yeah, no nothing. It was just text and you could put little notes out. Now it's very much looks, if you go, it has a feel of Medium, and it's not yet Medium by any way, shape, or form, but it has the feel of Medium. And what Facebook, what he says in the podcast is that Facebook came to him and said they really wanted him to use this and kind of be an early adopter and all that kind of stuff. And this is really where the thought comes from is Mitch been blogging for 12 years. Mark Schaefer's been blogging for 7 years. And what Mitch said to Mark was, Mark, if I post a blog on my site, Twist Image, whatever his blog is, let's say I get 1,000 viewers. That same content on Facebook gets 10,000 views. Yet the people on Facebook are never, ever going to come back to my site, or a very small percentage of them are, because they want to consume in that ecosystem. And and this is kind of where the blogging is dead topic came up, and then I'll shut down here for a second, is that the common conception, one of the core principles of content marketing and blogging and in since its infancy, has always been drive people back to your home base, to your website. That's the primary, you own it, blah, 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 blah. And the idea is, does it today, Marcus, matter if people see you on Facebook Notes or LinkedIn Publisher or your website? Does that matter anymore today?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, in at Zachariah Chef says, what about sharing your blog to Facebook? Now, I mean, I think here's the thing, Hanley. There's no question in my mind that if you have a chance to get an additional 10, 100, 10,000 views on a piece of content, that you would want to do it. That we're not so married to this idea of, my only goal is I need to have this social proof of likes on an article because that's what really makes me feel good inside. I think most of us now have gotten to the point where, we just want to get the views. However we get the views, we want to get the views. But here's the problem. Every time something like this happens, and it happened the same thing with LinkedIn recently, is the first couple of weeks or months, it was working really well. And then everybody wants to start use it. It waters down the whole place, right? The whole platform in this case. And then it has dramatically less value, and the novelty is wore off. So I'm just wondering if all of a sudden everybody and their mother and their brother and their sister is doing a Facebook note to talk about their thing, their article, to do this, to do that. Now notes are devalued. Then again, we find ourselves in the same place, and the cycle starts over and over and over again. I think Facebook Notes is going to be like, it'll probably be a trendy thing that will pick up speed over the next few weeks, and maybe it'll last 4 to 8 weeks, and then it'll die right back off again, and you'll see the occasional Facebook Notes. And I'm guessing it's going to be cyclical. I could be wrong.
So I'm going to take this. I have a philosophy I'm going to drop on you. This is a relatively new philosophy. I gave you a taste of it when we were talking on the cell phone before we went live.
Hey, by the way, Hanley, before you finish that, for those that don't know, Facebook has reestablished Facebook Notes. For those, and I know we mentioned, but Facebook, they have made the investment. And if you go to search right now, go to Google and type in Facebook Notes, and then just click on news. All right, click on the news portion of Google, and you're going to see how they have made this. It's a completely new update. And so you can make it look just like a WordPress blog. It's Medium on steroids, essentially. That's what they want it to be. And so they've made a push. They've made an investment. Facebook believes that blogging is alive. And in fact, this is a play for the teenagers as well, because more and more teenagers, shockingly, are starting to blog, which surprises me. It's like coming back with teenagers. And Facebook feels this is one way they can draw the teenagers in also. So sorry about that, Hanley.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for. It's like all things are cyclical, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like low cut pants came back in, and I'm
as
waiting.
As long as it's not the pants where you're rolling the bottom of the jeans tight against your ankles.
What was that? The tight roll. The tight roll. Oh my god! Your entire self-worth.
I'm still embarrassed.
School
about that one.
Was how well you could tight roll your pants was like your whole. That was like your whole status. Like if you were good at tight rolling, you were in. So here's my thought. I think that all these platforms, so I take big beef with LinkedIn and LinkedIn Publisher, not from the standpoint I think it's a bad platform. I hate, I think it was completely disingenuous the way that LinkedIn Publisher launched the platform to the general public. They had Richard effin Branson, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, who, all these huge personalities with huge audiences and communities, creating articles. And they're going, look LinkedIn Publisher, 50 million views. Like, no shit. You have 400 million people on your platform. You have one of the biggest names in the entire world creating content, and there's only 100 of them. And then you are purposefully using your platform to make sure that everybody on your platform sees it. Of course, it's going to get a ton of views. And then they push it out to the standard guy and they're like, hey, Johnny, auto repair guy, you should start come blogging because look at all the success that Richard Branson has. Our platform's amazing. And it just, to me, it was complete crap. I wrote a whole article about this that I think LinkedIn Publisher has a place. I do some content repurposing and syndication there for certain articles that I think fit that community. And I think it's a really good showcase on your platform, but I hate the way it was rolled out.
Yeah. Well, let me add one point to this. Here's what excites me about Facebook Notes, though, because you and I were looking at it tonight. And of course, I was the slow one that's like, how do you find it? Where is it now? And by the way, you just got to go to that little tab that says more. You click on it and then you go down and you, I think you have to click something else like
manage section.
Manage sections. And for most of us, our notes section is not checked. If you check it, you open the notes section back up and you can rock and roll with notes. And like Hanley and I were looking at a couple of notes that we wrote way back in the day, like, whoa, you kind of forget these things. Here's what's kind of cool about notes, in my opinion. And this is where I could see it having value. And that is, there are times when I want to talk about something that has really nothing to do with marketing and it's not a good fit for the sales lion. And it's not necessarily even a good fit for my podcasts or this show even. I just want to write about it in that moment. I could see Facebook Notes being a great place for that, right?
Yeah.
It could be a great place for that. So I'm just thinking about like the other elements that the artist within can come out easier and flesh it out on Facebook Notes and some of these other mediums, if you will, right? You have the ability to do that, whereas you still have to protect your brand and your audience that you've built on your own blog. So Mitch Joel, he can't really go on his blog right now, and he can't start talking about, well, he can talk about whatever he wants, but he doesn't generally talk about parenthood. He could absolutely go on Facebook Notes and crush it talking about parenthood, and I would read that in a second.
Yeah, so this is my larger thought on this topic. I kind of feel like, I'm not going to say the blog is dead. I think that would be not giving credit to the deal. This is my thought. And I think that truly the only thing that ultimately matters to the longevity of your business is your email list. I firmly and utterly believe that, because here's the thing, your server could crash tomorrow and your website is gone. And sure, you should be using Backup Buddy, but if there's 20 people in this room, maybe 2 of them are backing up their site on a regular basis. So
if you're using WordPress, you should be hosting with WP Engine, which is the greatest in the world, by the way. Just
WP Engine. And if they want to sponsor the show, we're open to that.
But they are truly amazing, and it has nothing to do with what you're talking about, but they are amazing.
Yeah, no, WP Engine is great. So the only thing that you really own is email. And I've been like, for the last, let's say 4 months, I have been so deep into email marketing on the other life that I live, the trustedchoice.com and Agency Nation side. And because with insurance professionals, the only way to reach them is email. Most of them aren't on Facebook during the day. Most of them aren't on Twitter. So the only way to get at them with a message is to hit them with email. So I've had to get really good at writing emails. And I can honestly tell you that a well-written email, 60% open rate is not outside the question. Well-written email to an audience that is targeted and segmented. Like this is another, and I'm off on a tangent about email marketing, but I'm just so so dialed into my brain right now. So the look on your face just weirded me out big time. So the deal with email marketing is that you don't need to bang your entire list every single time you want to send out a friggin' email. You can, segmentation is the key. If I want to send a message, and it's just to Florida agents, or just to agents who are part of a certain, who work with a certain carrier, or agents who have been to a certain page on my site, or agents who have talked to a salesperson but haven't done business with us yet. Those are all different messages. And if you send one message out to those 5 groups, you're going to get a terrible open rate, and you're going to be like, this email didn't work. when really it probably did work for the one segment that email was actually appropriate for. And I firmly believe that create on Facebook notes. I would always say, if you're not creating on your site, copy and paste it and put it into a Word document and just keep a folder of those, so that if something ever does happen, you haven't lost that IP. But push people to your email list from wherever you are. Create on LinkedIn Publisher if that's your spot. Create on Medium. Create on Facebook Notes. Create on your site. Create everywhere. Always link back. Always have the call to action to be, get on my email list. And maybe you have a couple different email lists based on, sometimes it's inspirational stuff, sometimes it's content marketing stuff, whatever. And segment that list, and that's what you truly own. You can take it with you anywhere.
So here's a quick question.
That's the
let's
power.
Let's say, Hanley, that somebody's listening to this right now. They have a list of 1,000 people. It's not segmented. How would you suggest they go about segmenting an existing list?
So a couple different ways. You can just straight send them an email with, just send them an email with a link and say, click on this link. I'm working on being more targeted. You can be very transparent with it. This is kind of the hack. So you just send them an email and say, hey, here, click on this link and enter your email address in the site that you go to if you're interested in hearing about content marketing. I want to touch people who are interested in content marketing. Everyone else, I'll send you my general stuff. But the content marketing people, I really want to dial into those. Or the people who really want to hear about cooking or inspiration or whatever. I know Courtney's on this. So maybe B2B, growing a small B2B and turning it into,
B&B, man. A B&B,
yeah,
not B2B. What you talking about, Cletus?
It's 10:15. I think that's a good way. There are also tools like Lead Pages or even Active Campaign, depending on what email service you're with, that have a link where if they click the link, it automatically will add them to a new email list. You can use surveys. You can do all kinds of things. A really good way to scrub your list is delete every email from someone who has not clicked on your last, say, 10 campaigns. Like anyone who has not opened one of my last 10 emails that I've sent, delete them. It's not worth having them, because here's the issue. It gives you a false sense of what's working and what's not working. And that's the most important part about email marketing, is constantly tweaking, is this message resonating? If it's not resonating, then you have to adjust. And if you have people that are just completely checked out and have either sent you to some weird folder or just aren't interested, or the email doesn't work anymore, you're getting a false sense of what's actually working and what's not. So having a clean email list is incredibly important.
So one of the mistakes that I made on the sales line was I've had this ebook, Inbound to Content Marketing Made Easy, now for, 4 years. And we had, just on that ebook alone, I think we have about 26,000 people that have downloaded it. What the problem was, Hanley, is I didn't segment it at all. So this could be anybody, right? This could be anybody. Yeah. And so now that we're getting past just let's just have this big old fat email list, now that we're finally thinking much smarter about segmentation, we are in the process of trying to take those 26,000 people and turning that into a much more segmented list. For example, we do a lot of work with HubSpot, but the biggest problem is we don't know how many of our existing subscriber base is a HubSpot user. That's awful. That's terrible. So what we're doing right now is we are sending out a survey. You mentioned that, but within the survey, it's one of those, hey, we want to give you more value. We have a super simple survey. There's only like 4 questions, but one of the questions is, are you using any of these platforms or tools? And it's a simple checkbox, which quickly allows them to put themselves in I'm using Hootsuite, I'm using HubSpot, or I'm using Infusionsoft. And now we have a much better sense for exactly what we're dealing with. One of the biggest mistakes that I have made with my list in this, it's smaller than some, but bigger than others, is I don't have a great sense for who our audience is. And that's not smart business, Hanley. And I've got to do better with that, hence the survey. But I think in general, businesses need to think about this as they're putting that in. And of course, today I'm a little bit smarter with our clients, because we're like, okay, we have this premium piece of content. We have this ebook. It has this one theme. It's a perfect segmented list now. And we know which vertical this is, yada, yada, yada. But we didn't do that with the sales line early. Big mistake.
Yeah. So this is what I'm going to tell people about cleansing your list. I have had at different times anywhere between 8,000 and 10,000 email subscribers. I now have 3,700, and I get anywhere between a 55 and a 62% open rate on my emails,
which is
and
amazing.
I told you about Paul. I told you about Paul Jarvis, who has a 66% open rate average on a 16,000 list. That's the best I've ever heard. But I would take just about anyone to, I would put my 3,700 people with my open rate against just about any list, because it's constantly cleaning. And I'm constantly saying, if you haven't opened my last 5, right? I literally send them an email that says, hey, I just want to let you know that, I need you to click this link or just respond to this email and let me know you're interested in staying, or I'm going to delete you. And I get people who are like, hey, I'm sorry. People are apologizing to me for not opening their emails. And I'm not trying to be a jerk. I just want to be like, I don't want to bother people. I want them to want what I have to say, because then when I need them to take action, they will. That is the important part, is your email list is meant as a relationship building tool over time, so that in that one moment when you need them to do something, they feel, hey, Marcus is giving me so much for free, such a great guy, and I can't wait to get his book about traveling with his daughter, or his new 12-step course on taking, segmenting a list or whatever. Like, I can't wait for that. And I think what happens too often is we just pound people over the head. And then when you ask, people are like, I don't really care anymore. I should have unsubscribed from this list a year ago.
Yeah, it's the digital boy who cried wolf. And eventually people just turn off the ears. Hey, man, I think this was a good way to end it. A good conversation about certainly about email, about blogging as well. One last point about blogging for me, Hanley, and then maybe you can just close out the episode, and that is this. I think when somebody says, is blogging dead, they're missing the mark. Because to me, we shouldn't be using the phrase blogging anyway. We should be talking about teaching on our website, teaching through our website, and answering customers' questions, concerns, worries, issues, etc. So when somebody says, is blogging dead, in my mind, they're saying our website's dead. And of course, I don't think anybody right now is saying websites are dead. So I think it's a pretty silly question. And I understand why they ask it. But frankly, from a semantic standpoint, it makes no sense to me, because once we truly understand what content marketing is, what blogging is, we're not saying things like, are they dead? We're having a different type of conversation. You close it out.
Let me boil this down for you. I have a really simple phrase that I came up with, and I'm going to put it in my next book, because I think it's just freaking genius. They ask, you answer.
They ask, you answer.
Thank you, everyone. It's been our pleasure. We're going to close the show, close the recording, and stick around for a few minutes, answer more questions if you have them. All right? Late.